$11 million in shrimp, $1.5 billion in buildings. In May 2024, Red Lobster went bankrupt and the internet convicted a prawn. $20 all you can eat, 11 million lost in a single quarter. Cheap shrimp killed an American icon. Case closed. 10 years earlier, in the spring of 2014, somebody sold the ground out from under every one of those restaurants. 500 buildings, $1.5 billion, signed, celebrated, and forgotten. Tonight that deal comes out of the archive because the shrimp loss everyone laughed at is less than 1% of it. The shrimp takes the stand, and the shrimp has an alibi. The people who paid were never on the menu. In the closure wave of May 2024, roughly 200 restaurant workers lost their jobs, and the lawsuits that followed say many got no warning at all. One of them has a name, Donna Lowe. Her class action claims she was terminated with no notice, the kind of notice federal law exists to require. On the doors, the announcement was a sheet of printer paper taped inside the glass. About 130 doors ended up locked, give or take. Brass handles shaped like ship's wheels that nobody will turn. Hold one of those doors in your mind. It opens again at the end of this trial. The case against the shrimp starts strong. For roughly 20 years, Endless Shrimp was an annual event, a limited-time stunt that pulled crowds precisely because it ended. Scarcity was the product. In June 2023, the company's interim chief executive, Paul Kenny, made it permanent. $20 every table, every day. Court filings say his own management team pushed back and that he did it anyway. Regulars did the math in seconds. Why order the $40 platter when 20 buys infinity? Kitchens ran short. Some restaurants ran out of shrimp for days at a stretch, and average checks sank while food costs climbed. The bill for that quarter, by the company's own account in the bankruptcy record, an operating loss of more than $11 million. There it is, the most famous number in this whole case. And it is real. The promotion genuinely bled money. Nobody disputes that. A court just asks a colder question. Is 11 million enough to kill this patient? Look at the rent first. 2014. Darden Restaurants wants Red Lobster gone, and Golden Gate Capital, a private equity firm out of San Francisco, buys the whole chain for $2.1 billion. In the same month, the second half of the deal surfaces. Golden Gate agrees to sell about 500 Red Lobster buildings, the restaurant's own real estate, to a landlord called American Realty Capital Properties. Price, roughly $1.5 billion. Run that trick on a business you can touch. Your corner coffee shop owns its building outright. A buyer takes over, sells the freehold, pockets the cash, and signs the shop up to rent its own room for 25 years, with the rent rising every single year. The shop looks identical the next morning. It is poorer forever. The Red Lobster version sits in the SEC's files, and we pulled them. 25-year initial leases on almost the entire portfolio. 2% compounded annual rent increases, contractual. The landlord's own press release celebrated that clause as providing built-in income growth. Follow each side home. Golden Gate paid $2.1 billion and took $1.5 billion straight back off the real estate on day one. Red Lobster kept the kitchens and a rent bill that court filings put near $190 million a year by 2023. Financial investigative reporter Gretchen Morgensen put it flatly, quote, "Not only did it have debt that it had to repay, it now had rents that it had to pay that it had not had to pay before. And the new owner of the properties increased the rents to above market rates." Now meet the shrimp's employer. 2016. Thai Union, one of the largest seafood suppliers on earth, pays $575 million for a quarter of Red Lobster, plus convertible shares, plus 2 seats on the board. In 2020, Golden Gate sells out entirely, and control passes to Thai Union alongside an investor group of restaurant executives. Read that structure slowly. The company selling Red Lobster its shrimp now sits at the head of Red Lobster's table. And the man who made endless shrimp permanent, Paul Kenny, came from that ownership world. Court filings describe him steering shrimp production outside the normal supply process, cutting 2 rival suppliers, and handing Thai Union an exclusive deal that raised Red Lobster's own costs. In February 2024, Thai Union announced it was walking away, and the money stopped. By the company's own court account, cash fell from $100 million to under 30 in 6 months. On May 19th, Red Lobster filed for bankruptcy in Orlando before Judge Grace Robson. The executive brought in to run the bankruptcy, Jonathan Tibbis, wrote something rare into the record. The debtors, he said, are exploring the impact of the control Thai Union exerted and whether those actions were consistent with duties owed to Red Lobster. A chief executive pointing at his own former owner. So whose fault was it? Remember the $11 million. Against the real estate deal, it is less than 1%. Against the rent bill, about 3 weeks. And even so, blaming the shrimp is not crazy. Argue it honestly. Tibbis's own filing leads with a tough economy, a bloated restaurant footprint, and failed initiatives, not with the landlord. 5 chief executives churned through in 3 years. Guest traffic had fallen by nearly a third since 2019. One of those 5, Kelly Valade, lasted 8 months before resigning. Quote, "I have truly loved my time here. This was an incredibly difficult but necessary decision." Read that again. 8 months. And the timing objection deserves its day. The lease deal was 10 years old when the chain collapsed. If rent alone were fatal, why did it take a decade? Because a lease like that does not stab you. It holds you still, 2% tighter every year while something else swings. Senator Elizabeth Warren this April. Quote, "If anyone looked right beneath the surface, they'd be able to see that Red Lobster's real downfall was not offering endless shrimp. It was private equity's endless greed." One housekeeping line before the verdict. We put one famous business story on trial every week. If you want to know which giant takes the stand next, subscribe. That is the only ask tonight.
Here is my verdict. The shrimp, not guilty of murder, reckless, yes. Fatal, no. A healthy company survives an $11 million mistake without calling a bankruptcy lawyer. The 2014 sale-leaseback, guilty of draining the blood bank, it turned the company's one safety net into somebody else's income stream, rising 2% a year forever. And the structure that let a supplier sit at the head of its customer's table, guilty of a conflict everyone could see and nobody stopped. My stamp on this file reads extracted.
Before sentencing, the appeal. 3 outside opinions flagged on screen, none of them edited.
I'd uphold the shrimp acquittal. It was reckless and damaging, but it looks more like the spark hitting a balance sheet already soaked in rent extraction and conflicted ownership. That said, 3 years of bad management still matters. The sale-leaseback and supplier-owner conflict explain the trap, but leadership made choices inside it. And no, a controlling shareholder should not also be the biggest supplier, unless the safeguards are so strict and independent that they practically remove control from the deal.
I agree the shrimp was a reckless symptom, not the underlying disease. The sale-leaseback created a financially brittle company with no margin for error, and the supplier-owner conflict introduced fatally compromised incentives. A controlling shareholder should never be its own main supplier. It's an inherent conflict that almost guarantees the company's interests will eventually come second.
I keep trying to convict the shrimp, because the shrimp is the only defendant that made a fresh decision in 2023, and every time, the lease pulls me back. My honest reading, the promotion chose the date Red Lobster fell. The 2014 deal decided, years earlier, that any fall would be fatal. and the ownership structure decided who would profit on the way down. If I could unwind only one of the three, I would unwind the real estate deal. That is my answer, and it is also the verdict I cannot fully prove.
This case is not history. It is live. In May 2026, a trust acting for creditors sued Thai Union in Florida, seeking to unwind roughly $32 million in shrimp transactions it calls economically unjustified. The complaint describes the endless shrimp rollout as, quote, a car crash. It also alleges Paul Kenny would remark that Red Lobster owed it to Thai Union. An allegation, not a finding. And one day before this episode, Thai Union answered in court, calling the suit, quote, a cynical attempt to blame one of its former owners for the failures of Red Lobster's own management. A judge will decide. Meanwhile, the patient lived. Fortress Investment Group carried Red Lobster out of bankruptcy in September 2024. 545 restaurants survived. The new chief executive, Damola Adamolkan, says sales are up roughly 10%, and Endless Shrimp came back this April as a limited-time offer only. His explanation for why it will never be permanent again, because I know how to do math.
That padlocked door from the start of tonight, in a lot of towns it is open again. Lights on, tanks full. In Times Square it never will be. The flagship went dark for good this June. And Donna Lowe's case still asks the one question nobody upstairs ever answered. If the end was 10 years in the making, how did the people inside get 0 days of warning? That is the wound in this file, and no comeback menu heals it. If you think the shrimp deserved the conviction after all, make your case in the comments. Tell me where I am wrong. I read the appeals. Next on the docket, America's #2 alcohol giant just ran out of money. How does a company selling drinks in a country that never stops drinking go broke? That trial is next.